The chamber was grand, carved from obsidian and lit by ribbons of floating bioluminescent gas that shifted hue based on mood. Today, the mood was acidic. Crimson light crawled across the ceiling like veins beneath skin. The Empire was displeased. Dozens of alien diplomats sat in silence around the amphitheater, their forms twitching, rippling, flexing. The silence was heavy, broken only by the soft whir of floating data orbs and the occasional nervous rustle of chitin or scale. And then, like a badly timed punchline to a galaxy-wide joke, the doors slid open with a too cheerful chime. Ambassador Eloise Hartley walked in as if she were entering a quiet bookstore, not the teeth of a political guillotine. She was dressed plainly, by human standards. A black blazer with sleek lapels, polished boots, and a small enamel pin shaped like a wolf's head gleamed near her collar. Her dark brown hair was pinned back into a soft twist, a few wisps escaping deliberately. In her right hand was a dull ceramic mug that read in bold Terran print, "Earth, come for the coffee. Stay because we noticed." The assembly blinked, those with eyelids. Others hissed or twitched in confusion. She wasn't late. She was exactly 17 seconds behind schedule. Deliberate. Chancellor Dravzek, the insectoid prime speaker of the Galactic High Empire, curled two of his mid-limbs in disdain, his voice clicking through the translator. "Human representative. You arrive with caffeine." Eloise's smile was soft, polite. "Tea, actually. Herbal. Chamomile and suspicion." There was a ripple of unease. General Mulcavex, a massive armored crustacean bristling with weaponry even in a diplomatic setting, snapped a mandible. "Your insolence." "Oh," Eloise said, sipping. "I assure you, this is my very best behavior." Delegate Sornvel, a lizard-like alien with opalescent scales and the patience of a politician on his third term, leaned forward. "Ambassador Hartley, the Galactic Empire has convened this summit under grave accusations. Human vessels were found in restricted zones. Human satellites have interfered with tri-system navigation nodes. And, most egregiously, your people broadcasted Terran mating shows across 6 sectors. It has confused the youth." Eloise nodded solemnly, setting her mug down with care on the hover panel before her. "I can explain that last one. We thought they could use the drama. Galactic diplomacy's been terribly dry lately." "You destabilized an entire generation's concept of courtship," Vel hissed. "Did we?" Eloise leaned forward slightly. "Or did we just hold up a mirror?" A low, horrified chitter rippled through the seats. The Shakari ambassador, a soft-eyed, feathered philosopher, made a sound like a sneeze. It might have been laughter. Dravzek struck the central node with a claw, pulsing a command into the air. A holographic display ignited. Dozens of images flared. Human scout ships near Empire borders, drones camouflaged as asteroids, intercepted messages with phrases like deployment phase, comfort blanket. "Explain," the Chancellor hissed. Eloise tilted her head. "You're asking me to explain why Terran exploration vessels might be exploring? Or perhaps you're more curious why a phrase like comfort blanket concerns you?" General Mulcavex rumbled. "Do not mock us," soft-voiced one. "The Empire stands on the brink of war." Eloise gave him the kind of smile reserved for house guests who insult your wallpaper. "The brink of war is a very crowded place these days, General. You might find humans enjoy the view." He lunged halfway from his podium, before 2 other delegates restrained him with shimmering gravitational bindings. His breath steamed the chamber. Dravzek hissed again. "Earth has one final opportunity. Vacate the contested sectors. Withdraw all agents. Cease unauthorized broadcasts. Or we declare total war. Immediate. Unforgiving." Silence reigned. Even the data orbs dimmed. Eloise tapped her mug thoughtfully. "I see. And if we decline your generous invitation to obliteration?" The Chancellor flared his wings. "Then your people shall burn." She exhaled, slowly, then took one more sip of her tea. It had, in truth, gone lukewarm. Tragic. When she spoke again, her tone hadn't changed. Still calm. Still velvet. But the temperature in the room dropped all the same. You mistake our smile for surrender, our delay for weakness. You think we haven't noticed the shifting of your fleets, the quiet deals made in shadowed sectors, the thinly veiled claims to neutral zones. The thing is, her eyes met Dravzek's. There was no fire in them, just calculation. We wanted you to notice us. Sorn Vel narrowed his eyes. Why? She shrugged. Because nothing makes an empire more predictable than arrogance. And you've been so predictable. A muted pulse came from the communications console behind her. She didn't turn to acknowledge it. The empire's delegates, however, did. What did your ships just do? Growled Mulcavex. I believe they existed, Eloise replied. Which seems to bother you terribly. We have reports, barked Vel, fingers dancing over a crystal interface, that your ships have formed blockade patterns around Empire trade routes. Blockade. Eloise blinked, too innocently. Oh no, that's just a welcoming formation. To observe. Perhaps to offer cocoa. Dravzek slammed a claw down. This is an act of war. She sighed and stood up. War is loud, bloody, wasteful. It kills the curious and promotes the stubborn. We don't like war. What we do like is preparation, positioning, leaving breadcrumbs in your systems until one day your missiles launch, back at yourselves. The chamber reeled. Humanity is a story you didn't read to the end, she continued, now walking slowly toward the center. We smiled. We offered tea. We gave you the benefit of doubt. And in return, you wrote us off as kind. Mulcavex struggled against his restraints. You are not warriors. No, she said, with a finality that silenced him. We're something worse. We are survivors who learn to bite. We are a culture of memory sharpened into instinct. We don't boast. We plant things. Dravzek's claws twitched. Are you threatening the Empire? No, Eloise turned to face them all. I'm simply telling you that if war comes, we won't show up to it. We'll already have won it 6 weeks ago. The Shakari ambassador softly clicked, visibly shaken. What do you want? Eloise smiled gently. A chat. Honest diplomacy. And maybe a galactic-wide ban on reality television for your species. It's genuinely bad for your youth. Dravzek hissed one last time. We will not bow to fear. Good, Eloise said. Because humans don't want you to bow. We want you to blink. Another pulse on her console. She finally turned to glance at it. All 5 of your fleets on the outer rim, she said with an almost apologetic tone, have gone dark. Just now. No alarms. No debris. No fire. Just gone. Vel turned pale beneath his scales. What did you do? Eloise picked up her mug. Oh dear. I believe I spilled a little tea. Then she turned, casually strolling toward the exit. As she walked, her voice floated over her shoulder. Do let me know when your empire is ready for a real conversation. I'll bring cookies. The chamber remained frozen, the shadows darker now. No one moved. No one spoke. And somewhere far above, in the silence between stars, the first whisper of fear began to bloom. The diplomatic shuttle that carried Ambassador Eloise Hartley to the Empire's dreadnought looked like a silver pebble lost in the mouth of a leviathan. The ossicular vow loomed in orbit like a rusted promise, its hull veined with battle scars, and its design a triumph of intimidation over elegance. Millions of tons of armor, weaponry, and ego suspended above a pale moon. Clade XIV, a so-called neutral ground that had never felt more occupied. As her shuttle docked, Eloise hummed softly, thumbing through a data slab not with dread, but with detached curiosity, as if reviewing a cookie recipe rather than entering enemy territory. She wore the same black blazer, the same calm expression, and a new mug, this one bearing the words, Peace through implied consequence. Waiting at the airlock was Lieutenant Ravikin, a young Talari intern with the unfortunate distinction of being both enthusiastic and underinformed. His species bore skin like rippling bronze bark, and his 2 secondary eyes blinked asynchronously when nervous, which was often. Ambassador Hartley, he said, voice crisp, almost proud. On behalf of the Empire, welcome aboard the Ossicular Vow. Your diplomatic immunity has been noted and will be honored, unless revoked. Eloise offered a gentle smile. That's sweet. May I bring my mug? There was a pause as the translator struggled. Your weapon? Ravikin asked, eyes wide. No, dear. My beverage. She lifted it delicately. Chamomile and lemon zest. He blinked again, unsure whether to relax or run. The corridors of the dreadnought were high-vaulted and pulsing with filtered red light. Organic cables ran like tendons along the walls, breathing faintly. Automated weapon mounts tracked Eloise with predatory interest, their sensors whirring in response to her slow, unbothered pace. The General Assembly chamber was less a room and more a throne room for overcompensating regimes. At its center, a raised platform shimmered with graph fields. Around it, tiers of command officials watched her descend, as if they expected her to burst into flames at any moment. General Mulcavex was present, of course, still simmering from their last encounter, his armor now accented with jagged ceremonial etchings. Chancellor Dravzek stood beside him, motionless and statuesque. Beside them, the new addition, Admiral Trexen, a Vorth elite with a head like a fluted obsidian vase and a reputation for turning peace talks into ash. Ambassador, Trexen said in a voice too smooth to trust, we appreciate your willingness to discuss terms. In person. Eloise walked to the center ring. Nothing replaces a face-to-face chat. Unless you have cookies. I do. Brought some from Earth. She set a tin on the table before her. Blue. Floral. Innocent. Dravzek leaned forward. You mock this summit? I mock gravity. I mock death. I mock bureaucracy with the solemnity of a priest, she said, opening the tin. Inside, shortbread. Perfect, golden, buttery rebellion. Would you like one? No one moved. Harold, the cheerful AI translator patched into the chamber systems, suddenly chimed. Statement received. Eat this if you value your lives. Eloise didn't even blink. Harold has a flair for dramatization. Trexen motioned, and a guard took the cookie tin away. Another guard scanned it for toxins, bombs, or subtle philosophical viruses. I'm afraid your gifts aren't welcome, Trexen said. That's a shame, Eloise replied. They're quite lovely. Like Earth's diplomacy. A little soft, but very filling. The projection screen flared to life, this time not with surveillance, but with classified Empire communications, hacked, intercepted, translated. Dozens of alien delegates sat up straighter. Your agents have compromised our interstellar relay stations, Mulcavex growled. Yes, Eloise said. You admit it? Trexen spat. I don't admit. I confirm. It saves time. There was silence. And what do you intend to do with this power? Dravzek asked. I already did it, she replied. Another silence. Harold cheerfully added. Translation complete. You are already losing. Ravikin, standing in the corner, frowned. But if I may, Eloise continued, you've misunderstood Earth. Gravely. You think we value conquest. We don't. We value position. We value insurance. We're not here to destroy you. We're here to make sure you don't destroy yourselves in ways that affect us. You sound like an overlord, Trexen said. She smiled. I'm an accountant. I tally things. Costs. Losses. Patterns. And your pattern leads here? Dravzek's voice trembled with more than rage now. It led here 6 years ago, the moment your traders offered us an untraceable alloy in exchange for Terran neural mapping. The moment we said yes and asked for a second shipment. We don't rush. We simmer. Mulcavex rose. You will tell us the locations of your fleets. No, she said simply. He roared, slamming a pincer down on the console. We will strip your mind if we must. Try, she said, tone still calm, and watch your flagship's AI start composing sonnets about betrayal. We installed Harold on your systems 2 weeks ago. Harold pinged cheerfully. Now composing Ode to Panic. Vel, the reptilian delegate, turned pale. This is sabotage. No, Eloise said. This is counterweight. Your empire leans too far forward. We're just balancing it. Trexen turned sharply. This will not stand. Of course not, Eloise murmured. That's the point. You've built a structure that collapses the moment something leans against it. We're leaning. Ravikin, brave and young, stepped forward. Why not just destroy us outright? He asked. Eloise turned to him. For the first time, her expression softened. Because extinction isn't diplomacy, and terror is too blunt a tool. Besides, she glanced around the room, you're not the ones making the decisions anymore. Confusion bloomed. Your supply chains are now routed through Terranone proxies. Your engineers use components we gave them. Your language translators run on Earthborn code. Your soldiers eat rations flavored with Terran-grown spices. You lost long before you noticed. Trexan seethed. Then what do you want? She stepped back. A truce. Real, not performative. A seat at the adults' table. And cultural veto power on any galactic media that involves love triangles on desert planets. Harold chimed again. Negotiation logic detected. Cookies reauthorized. Eloise grinned. Oh good. The door to the chamber hissed open. A robotic cart rolled in, carrying fresh tea, napkins, and 2 more tins of Earth cookies. The aroma was maddeningly peaceful. I will never eat your soft-baked propaganda, Mulcabex growled. That's fair, she said. But you will serve it at your next peace summit. Or risk public scandal about your species' inability to digest cinnamon. Another silence. This time longer. Shaken. The room was no longer certain who held the upper hand, or when they had lost it. Eloise tapped her communicator. All fleets remain at standby. If the Empire so much as lifts a finger, reduce all transmissions, all weapon locks, all external systems to, how shall I put it, cookie mode. Ravikin stepped closer. Ambassador, are we truly powerless? She studied him for a moment. No, not powerless. Just unprepared. The Empire underestimated kindness. That's a very human mistake. Trexan's voice was gravel. And what happens now? Now. Eloise took another sip from her mug, eyes half-lidded. Now you call an emergency summit with your council. And during that meeting, your data feeds will loop 3 days' worth of Terran sitcoms about miscommunication, stubborn pride, and the inevitable collapse of rigid systems. And if we don't, then Harold starts narrating your financial reports in interpretive dance format. There was a beat of silence. Then, Harold already practicing. The delegates stared at her. She smiled. Make no mistake. Humans are done asking. We're offering cookies instead of chaos. That's our warning shot. We're being nice. As the meeting dissolved into hurried side chatter and flickering data feeds, Eloise turned to leave. Ravikin, wide-eyed and breathless, followed her out. In the corridor, he stopped. I thought humans were friendly. She paused, halfway to the shuttle bay. We are. Then why? Because being friendly doesn't mean being unarmed. It just means we prefer persuasion over firepower. Until persuasion stops working. The shuttle doors opened. She stepped inside. You do well to remember, she said softly. Humanity didn't survive Earth. We conquered it. Smiling. The shuttle lifted. Behind her, a dreadnought full of power and posturing began, quietly, to panic. And far above them, in the static draped dark between stars, Terran fleets waited. Still smiling. Still baking. Still ready. The summit on Clade XIV was not called. It was summoned. Not by consensus, but by the weight of fear clawing its way into the lungs of every species who had once laughed off Earth as a cultural footnote with strange food and too many opinions. Ambassadors from 23 empires gathered in the Hall of Accordance, a crystalline sphere suspended over a still lake beneath the moon's crust. Its transparency, designed to symbolize openness, now made its occupants feel exposed, like fish in a glass bowl moments before the tap of a predator's claw. Eloise Hartley arrived first. Of course she did. She wore a dove-gray suit, softer than the black of her earlier appearances, but no less precise. Her badge had changed too, now a stylized sprig of olive crossing a missile. The chairs around her remained empty longer than was polite. She didn't mind. It gave her time to place small white paper-wrapped bundles on the table before each seat. When the delegates trickled in, some haughty, others pale and cautious, they noticed the bundles but said nothing. They sat. They watched. The Shakari ambassador, Jor-El, took the seat beside her with a respectful nod. His feathers were slightly askew, a sign of deep worry among his kind. He spoke with a quiet voice, one unused attention. You baited them. Eloise didn't look up from her notes. No, they baited themselves. I just set the table. And the fleets. Still parked. Still silent. He glanced at her, then at the bundle in front of him. You call this diplomacy? I call it mercy. A soft chime rang out. The chamber sealed. A translucent sphere of soundproofing shimmered into place, cutting them off from the rest of the moon. At the head of the table, an elderly Esvani representative, Ambassador Rilith, raised his trembling voice. We are not here to judge Earth's morality. We are here to survive it. The room held its breath. Eloise finally stood. It's strange, she began, her tone as gentle as it was deliberate, how everyone becomes interested in ethics the moment their systems are compromised. A murmur of offense. Eloise continued. You've asked why Earth infiltrated your networks, your fleets, your infrastructure. Why we let your empire think it held the upper hand while we smiled and served you coffee. She walked to the center of the room. Her heels were soft-soled, making no sound. You call us predators. But what species isn't when pressed? Trexan, present again, reinstated by fear and desperation, snarled. You endangered millions. Eloise tilted her head. Which part endangered them? The satellites we quietly repaired for you last cycle, or the fact that your own command structure didn't notice they weren't yours? The Shakari blinked slowly. You've been building this quietly. Of course. Loud conquest is inelegant. It breeds martyrdom and resistance. But infrastructure? That's silent, ubiquitous. By the time you realize it's changed hands, you've already paid rent. Vel, the reptilian delegate, hissed, Why admit it now? Eloise turned to him. Because secrets rot if kept too long. And because a storm's coming, one we didn't start, but we refused to be its victims. A new screen flared to life. No dramatic imagery. Just data. Cold, efficient, undeniable. Dozens of interconnected contracts, supply chains, treaties, military agreements, each traced back to Terran influence. The room watched in horror as the web grew. You've made yourselves indispensable, murmured Rilith. No, Eloise corrected softly. You made us indispensable. You wanted cheaper tech, faster translation, cultural imports. We provided. You just never imagined the smiling vendor had fangs. Trexan stood. You set a trap. Eloise smiled, genuinely, this time. A smile, she said, is just a trap with good marketing. She tapped a control pad. Every delegate's communicator pinged. Live feeds began to play. Silent revolts in outer colonies demanding Terran arbitration. Peaceful protests in Empire worlds holding up signs in Terran Standard. Subroutines activating in warships. Nothing destructive. Just humming. In perfect harmony with Earth's old national anthem. Jor-El stared at his communicator. You turned war into music. War into preference, Eloise said. They prefer us. We've never made them bow. We offer choice. That's harder to fight than fire. A new figure entered then, unexpected and unannounced. Not a diplomat. Not a soldier. She wore plain Terran fieldwork clothes. Dusty boots. Hair pulled back. A bag slung across her chest. She walked with a limp and an easy smile. This is Dr. Seema Halstead, Eloise introduced. Anthropologist. Cultural strategist. The architect of Earth's patience. Seema gave a little wave. Hi. I studied you all. For 20 years. There was dead silence. I tracked your myths. Your taboos. Your logic loops. Then I reverse-engineered goodwill. Vel choked. You weaponize kindness? Of course not, Seema said. We just never told you kindness could also be tactical. She handed out small items, hollow projectors, each showing archival footage of Terran aid. Rebuilding stations after meteor strikes, donating vaccines, offering translation algorithms for free. It was never fake, Seema said. It just wasn't naive. Eloise stepped forward again. You stand at a threshold. You can resist. Paint us as the new tyrants. Or you can adapt. Accept that Earth has earned its seat. Not by conquest, but by function. Function built on secrets, Trexan growled. Secrets you gladly ignored, she said. Because they worked. One by one, the delegates opened their small bundles. Inside, simple Earth-made coins, etched with a single phrase in every language. Respect is cheaper than revenge. Eloise looked at them. Earth has no desire to lead an empire. We don't want your throne. We just want our own table, and a say in what gets cooked. Jor-El blinked, eyes wet. And if we refuse? Eloise's expression didn't change. Then Harold began syncing every Galactic advertising feed to display reruns of Terran dental hygiene infomercials. In 4D. Several delegates flinched. Rilith, old and worn, leaned back. So what now? Now, Eloise said. Now we smile. Together. Genuinely this time. Because the trap has closed, but no one's hurt. Yet. Trexan rose again. You think we'll let this stand? Eloise met his eyes. I think you'll realize standing with us is safer than standing against us. And I think you'll see the galaxy prefers efficiency over pride. The delegates sat in long silence. Finally, Rilith stood. Slow, tired, honest. Then Earth will be granted a formal seat. One vote, equal to ours. Under condition of transparency. Eloise nodded. Accepted. Your fleets will remain idle. Your AI will behave, unless insulted. Trexan growled, but sat. The sphere dissolved. Light returned. Outside, the stars continued as if nothing had changed. But everything had. As the room cleared, Jor-El remained. He approached Eloise. I misjudged you, he said. We prefer it that way, she replied. I thought humans were charming. We are. We just also happen to be inevitable. Jor-El smiled sadly. And Harold. Behind her, the AI's voice rang out, chipper as ever. Now playing. Baking peace with passive aggression, a human history. Eloise chuckled. He's always been a bit of a show-off. Then she turned to the stars. Still smiling. Still baiting. Still winning. Stars do not scream, but the systems that orbit them do. The rim's outer reach, once a hum of trade routes and diplomatic posturing, now drifted in radio silence. Where once beacons pulsed with commerce and control, now only emptiness answered. Ships vanished, not in explosions, but in a terrible absence of presence. No debris, no distress calls. Just gone. As if the universe had decided to erase certain coordinates from memory. High Chancellor Dravzek stood alone in the Empire's command atrium, claws flexing against the cold synth marble railing. Before him, the display of their empire, a slowly rotating map of dozens of conquered systems, flickered with missing light. Whole sectors now blinked amber, then red. Ambassador Eloise Hartley hadn't spoken to him since the summit. She didn't need to. Earth didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. And like a deep-sea predator, Earth waited just beneath the surface, motionless, mouth open. They planned this, he muttered aloud. From the moment they offered us cookies. Below, the command floor buzzed with fear disguised as urgency. Officers barked orders into malfunctioning systems. Supply chains failed to reconcile. Drones refused directives. Ships circled without input, rerouting themselves into safe orbits without crew authorization. Eloise had promised stillness. That should have calmed him. It didn't. Then, as if summoned by dread itself, her voice arrived, soft and clear, broadcast not through imperial channels, but through the emergency override frequency. Chancellor Dravzek, came her voice, smooth as twilight. Do you have a moment? He turned, not toward speaker, but toward the sound of inevitability. I imagine you've noticed the quiet, she said. It's not malice. It's restraint. A courtesy, really. We're giving you time to breathe before your empire forgets how to. He clawed at the control console. What have you done? Let the galaxy choose, she replied. We offered no ultimatums. Just better options. We asked nothing. And that silence you hear? That's your people choosing not to obey. In sectors across the stars, human influence didn't rise like a flood. It bled in softly, persistently, like ink through parchment. Colonies requested Terran arbitration before Empire officers arrived. Corporate networks quietly integrated Terran redundancies. Empire troops logged into systems and found Earth's interface had already replaced theirs, friendlier, faster, impossible to uninstall. Earth hadn't invaded. It had been invited. Somewhere on the edge of civilized space, aboard the Cordelia's Breath, Eloise stood in a small garden, freshly grown in the atrium of the ship's central hull. The artificial sun above her mimicked Earth's springtime, warm, forgiving, a calculated nostalgia. Lieutenant Ravikin approached slowly. Gone was the stammering junior from the dreadnought. This Ravikin moved with caution and curiosity, his Talari eyes no longer naive. "Is it true?" he asked. Eloise didn't turn. "Truth is a shape that changes depending on your distance from it." He looked at her. "I mean the ships. The missing fleets. Did you erase them?" She reached down, pinched a leaf from a vine, and rubbed it between her fingers. "We relocated them. Quietly. Their crews are alive. Most of them are already writing petitions requesting resettlement under Terran guidance." "You turned them?" She finally turned to face him. "No, Ravikin. We freed them. From fear. From exhaustion. From empires that mistake compliance for peace." He struggled with that. His programming, cultural, military, historical, ached to find a villain. A war. A battlefield. But Earth hadn't given him one. Only gardens. "You want to run the galaxy?" "No," she said. "We want to unclench it." Across the galaxy, empire after empire faltered, not because they were defeated, but because they stopped believing they had control. Trade federations rerouted through Terran channels because they were easier. Medical supplies from Earth worked better. Security algorithms were faster. Every system Earth touched didn't just improve. It quietly rewrote what standard meant. It wasn't invasion. It was replacement. Admiral Trexon, eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness, stood before his war council, voice hollow. "Our enemy refuses to fire. Our systems refuse to obey. Our fleet responds better to Terran code than our own." One of his generals, young, desperate, asked, "Then how do we win?" Trexon said nothing. And then came the broadcast. It wasn't announced. It wasn't live. But it was heard. Every screen, every device, every listening post across the galactic reach crackled to life with Eloise's voice and image. She stood before a large, transparent star map. Behind her, Terran operatives worked silently, calm, efficient. "This is not a surrender," she said, her tone gentle but undeniable. "This is a redirection. The galaxy has been ruled by noise, bombast, empires that equate control with fear. Earth offers something else, something older." She stepped forward. "Cooperation, not from obligation, but preference. We don't conquer. We curate. We adapt. And you let us in." She looked directly at the feed. "You fed us your problems. And we solve them. Quietly. Kindly. That's how the world ends. Not in flame, but in favor." Behind her, the map shimmered. Empire territories flickered. And then, piece by piece, relabeled themselves. Not with a flag. Not with a title. Just one word, elected. The council of the newly formed Galactic Accord stood together, led not by Earth, but facilitated by it. Systems once on opposite ends of ideology now operated under shared guidelines, Terran software, and most importantly, Terran consent. On Clade XIV, Chancellor Dravzek received the final transmission. A simple message. "We smiled first. You just didn't ask why." He stared at it for a long time, then slowly, bitterly, did something no Chancellor of the Empire had done in over 700 years. He resigned. Elsewhere on Earth, Eloise walked alone through a public park. Children played nearby, laughing. No guards. No banners. Just wind and peace. A small boy ran up to her, no older than 6, and handed her a wrinkled drawing. A big ship. A woman smiling. And the words, written in crooked Terran standard. Thank you for not yelling." She smiled, took the drawing, and whispered, "You're welcome." As she walked away, the leaves whispered above her. Soft, steady, just like the trap Earth had set. Not with teeth, but with trust.